Hi everyone and welcome back. In this video we're going to look at the flaws of the voting methods. So if you'll recall, we discussed 4 different voting methods in the last 2 videos, and that was the plurality method, board account, plurality with elimination, and pairwise comparison. And all of those methods are a reasonable means for determining a winner, but each method has certain flaws. One way we're going to examine the voting methods is by looking at what we call fairness criteria. And there's 4 fairness criteria which mathematicians and political scientists have agreed that a voting method should meet. And those are the majority criterion, head-to-head criterion, monotonicity criterion, and the irrelevant alternatives criterion. So let's take a look at the majority criterion first. If we have a single candidate and the first choice of a majority of voters chooses that candidate, most voters would agree that that candidate should be declared the winner. But if it does not happen with that voting method, then that voting method violates something called the majority criterion. So if you'll recall when we did 14.1, the very first example we did was an example involving the plurality method for voting. And we had to choose out of 3 different animals, the animal that would represent the logo for the zoo. And whatever animal won using the plurality method, it only represented 40% of the vote for first place. So as we know, we need more than 50% for a majority, and that didn't happen. So that method violated what we call the majority criterion. Okay, let's take a look at an example here. So the members of the City of Orlando Town Board are holding an election to select a company to maintain the property at Lake Eola Park.
Can I see if I left my phone here?
Yeah, sure. The choices are Green World Landscaping, Lawn and Garden Haven, and Joe's Garden. The 13 board members rank the 3 choices and then use the board account method to make their selection. The preference table is shown right there. So which company is chosen using the board account method? So if you recall, we have to look at the first, second, and third place and assign points. So we're going to first look at Green World Landscaping. So I'll just call that G since I don't have a lot of room here. And for first place, we have 7 people that voted. And since there's 3 different places, we're going to multiply that by 3, and that gives us 21. And then second place, we have 2 votes for green. So we're going to multiply that by 2, which gives us 4. And then for third place, green's got 4 votes. We're going to multiply that by 1, and that also gives us 4. And when we add that up, we get 29. So they get 29 points. And we're going to do that for each of them. For the Lawn and Garden Haven, I'm getting 6 from adding up the 4 and the 2 right here, okay, because we had 4 people plus 2 people choose Lawn and Garden for first place, so that's where the 6 is coming from. And nobody voted Lawn and Garden to be in third place. We're just gonna add those up. We get 32 points. And then last but not least, we've got Joe's Garden. And no one voted for Joe's first place. So we've got 4 times 2 for second, and then 9 times 1, which is 7 plus 2. That's where the 9's coming from. And when we add those up, we got 17. So as you can see here, the Lawn and Garden Haven were the winners because they got the most number of points. Okay, so they win. Now, does that winner have a majority of the first place votes? So lawn and garden, as we can see, have 4 plus 2, or 6 out of how many total votes? If we add up the top row, we get 13, right? It also tells us in the problem that 13 board members, so the votes should add up to 13. And 6 divided by 13 does not give us more than 50%. In fact, 6 divided by 13 is about 46%. So unfortunately, no. In fact, if you look, the Green World Landscaping has the majority of the votes, right? Because they've got 7 out of the 13. So I know that that's more than 50%. 7 divided by 13 is 54%, okay? So you can pause the video now, and what I'd like you to do is take the preference table for the outcomes of 33 votes of a certain election, and you're going to recall the 4 different voting methods, pardon me, and you're going to determine which candidate would be chosen and whether or not that method violates the majority criterion. And then you can unpause the video when you're ready to try the next example. So hopefully after you finished the examples there, you would see that of the 4 methods discussed, it was the board account method that violates the majority criterion. And it can violate, so I want to point that out. So not always, but of the 4 voting methods, it is the board account method. So an advantage of the board account method is, as we talked about in 14.1, is that it takes into account voters' preferences by ranking the candidates. But a disadvantage is that the candidate with the majority of first place votes can lose. Okay, next let's look at the head-to-head criterion, which is another fairness criteria used to determine if the voting method is actually fair. The head-to-head criterion is also known as the Condorcet criterion, which is named after someone. And it states that if a candidate is compared head-to-head with every other candidate, that candidate should be declared the winner. Okay, and head-to-head just means you're comparing any 2 candidates. So it's kind of like pairwise if you think of it, except you don't want to confuse pairwise with head-to-head. Pairwise, remember, pairwise comparison was a voting method, whereas head-to-head is actually a fairness criteria. So it's used to determine whether the voting methods are fair. Okay, so here we have 4 candidates running for the mayor of Miami. The election involves voters ranking the candidates with the results shown in the table. So there is our preference table. Question A, is there one candidate who is favored over all others using a head-to-head comparison? So what we're going to do is we're going to compare them head-to-head. Okay, so I'm going to compare A versus B. And then I'm going to compare A versus C. And A versus D. Okay, and the reason I'm doing this is because I want to compare 2 candidates at once to see if one of them would be declared the winner in all 3 pairs. So for Alvarez, if we look at the number of first place votes that Alvarez has, and again, we're comparing A and B, right? So A has to go first and then B, so that would be 129, and then A and B, so A came first, and then B, that would be 90. In all the other ones, it's not A and B, so we're just gonna add 129 and 90. And that's gonna give me 219. And then for B, it's gonna be the leftovers. So I know that if I was to add these numbers, let's see, 129 plus 90 plus 87 plus 78 plus 42, this adds up to 426. So if I subtract 426 minus 219, I get 207. So here we can see that Alvarez won in that comparison, that head-to-head. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. So Alvarez again is 219. And this time I'm looking at Collins. So Collins would just be 426 minus 219. So again, that comes out to be 207. And Alvarez wins again. And then last but not least, I have Alvarez and Davis. And Alvarez and Davis, so A and D, that would be, again, it's gonna add up to 219, but we're using different numbers. So A and D, that would be 90. And then the other place that A is first, A and D is 87 and 42. So if I add 90 plus 87 plus 42, again, I get 219. And again, D would be 207, the leftover. So Alvarez wins again. So overall, Alvarez should be declared the winner because they're favored over all the candidates. So therefore, Alvarez should be declared the winner because they're favored over all candidates. Okay, let's look at the plurality method and see if it violates the head-to-head criterion. So we should be getting Alvarez for our answer, okay? So plurality, remember, we're just gonna add up the number of first place votes for each. So if I look at the preference table, it looks like A has 90 first place votes and B has 87. C has 78 plus 42, which gives us 120, and D gives us 129. So according to this, Davis has the most first place votes, so Davis is the winner. So therefore, plurality, this method can violate the head-to-head criterion. How about board account? So for board account, remember we're ranking and then we're assigning points to quantify that rank. So we know A had 90 first place votes, and then it had 129 second place votes. They had 87 plus 42, so 129 third place votes, and then 78 fourth place votes. So this gives us 360, let's see, 387, that would be 258 and 78. And if I add all of that up, and actually let me slide this up so we have some more room. If I add all of that up, I'm gonna get 1,083 points. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing. And it kind of helps if you have the preference table in front of you to follow along. So again, for Buchanan, it's they got 87 first place votes, so 87 times 4. They got 78 plus 42 second place votes, so that's 120 times 3. And then 129 plus 90 third place votes, so that's 129 plus 90 is 219, and then no fourth place votes. So we're gonna add up 348 plus 360 plus 438, and we get 1,146. Okay, for C, it's 120 first place votes, 177 second place votes. There's no third place votes, and 129 last place or fourth place votes. And when we add that, we get 1140. And then D is 129 times 4, 78 times 2. There were no second place votes. There's 78 third place votes. And then 129 first place votes. And we get 801. So as you can see here, the winner is Buchanan, because Buchanan got the lowest, or got the most votes. And again, when we did the head-to-head criterion, Alvarez should be the winner. So we can see here that Board of Count can also violate the head-to-head criterion. Okay, let's look at plurality with elimination. Remember, for this one, we're gonna have rounds. So we'll start out with our first round, and we're just looking at the number of first place votes, and then we're gonna eliminate the one with the lowest, right? So if you'll remember, it went 90, 87, 120, and 129 first place votes, and the lowest was Buchanan. So Buchanan's now out. So we need to have a second round, and everything is going to shift. So when I look at my chart, remember the B's are gonna go away. So C is gonna shift up to here, right? D is gonna shift up in that space. All of these are going to shift up 1. So C will become first, A will become second, D will become third, right? D is gonna shift up in A, and then A is gonna shift up in D. Okay, so no B's. Everything else just takes its spot. Okay, so when that happens, for my second round now, A is gonna have still 90. There is no B. C is gonna be 120 plus 87, so that's 207. And D is 129. So as you can see here, A, or Alvarez, is gonna drop out. Okay, and still no one has the majority. So the majority would have to be, we have 426. So if I just divide that by 2, we have to have more than 213 to be a majority, because 213 would be 50%. Majority is more than that. So we have to have another round, okay, until someone makes the majority. So now it's just down to C and D. So remember, they're going to shift. Okay, C now takes on, if you look at the table, right, I'm going to cross out the A's and B's. They're going away. And everything's just going to move. So C is going to move up here. C is going to move there. And then D is going to take its spot. C is going to move there. D is going to take its spot. D just has to move up here. and D just has to move up there. So now when I look at this, I've got a C here, a C here, and then a C in the other two columns. So all of those four numbers now are C's votes for first place. So if you add them, you get 297, and D gets 129. So as you can see, C, or Collins, is the winner, because Collins has the majority, which is more than 213. They have 297, and then D is 129. So the winner is Collins. Okay, and as we can see, this can also violate the head-to-head criterion. All right, one more method is the pairwise comparison method. So for this one, we have to do 6 comparisons, right? And the way I'm getting that, again, the number of comparisons is just the number of candidates, and then times the number of candidates minus 1 divided by 2. So this just gives me 4 times 3, which is 12, divided by 2, which is 6. So I'm just gonna do A versus B, and then I'm gonna stick with A still, and pair them up with all the other letters, A versus C, A versus D, okay? And then I'm gonna start with B, B with C, B with D, and then I'm gonna do C with D, and that'll cover all of them. And what we're doing is, if you look at, for instance, A versus B, what I need to do is look at where A goes before B. And everywhere I highlighted, A goes before B. So that means that for A, it's gonna be 129 plus 90 votes. And then to get B, it's just gonna be 426 minus that total, right? Because these are the columns where B goes before A. So again, I'm just adding 129 plus 90, and 129 plus 90 gives me 219. And then I'm just gonna do 426 minus 219, so it's 207. And I'm gonna do the same thing now. Okay, so remember, the winner gets 1 point. So Alvarez is 1 point. If there's a tie, they get half a point each. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing now. I'm looking at A versus C, and it comes out to 219 again, and C is 207. So as you can see, Alvarez gets another point. And I'm just gonna fill these in. Okay, and if I add these up really quick, I can automatically see Alvarez gets 3 points, and Collins would have 2 points, Buchanan is 1 point. So Alvarez is the winner, and remember, that also is what we got in the head-to-head criterion when we were checking the fairness of it. So this method, pairwise comparison, does not violate. So pairwise comparison does not violate the head-to-head criteria. Okay, so the only voting method that does not have the potential to violate the head-to-head criterion is the pairwise comparison method. The other 3 methods, we note that it did actually have the potential to violate the head-to-head criterion. Okay, we're gonna stop there for this video. There will be a second part to the video for the next 2 voting flaws, which are the monotonicity criterion and the irrelevant alternatives criterion.